I found out my brother was secretly banging my ex after she dumped me over my thinning hairline. At their engagement party, my dad told me, "Your brother deserved happiness more than you," and had already handed him Grandpa's entire business that should have been half mine. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey guys, 29 male, didn't plan to post here, but apparently being calm and reasonable is a crime now. So here goes. Picture this. So I'm sitting there, dead tired after a 12-hour shift at the plant. My hands still had that black grease under the nails that never comes out no matter how much you scrub. I'm an industrial mechanic. I fix the machines that keep factories running. Not glamorous, but it pays well, and I'm good at it. Been saving every extra penny to start my own mobile repair service someday. My girl Mira, 26 female, was waiting at our apartment with this weird look on her face. I figured maybe she had a bad day at work or whatever. She's sitting there on our couch, still in her work clothes, this pencil skirt and blouse combo she wears to her admin job at her dad's friend's insurance company. Not smiling, not on her phone, just sitting there, hands folded, looking like someone at a funeral. Man, I was so wrong about what was coming. She sits me down and goes, "We need to talk." Classic, right? Then she drops this on me. "I've been thinking about us and I just don't see myself with you long term anymore." I'm like, what? Where's this coming from? We'd been together 3 years, engaged for 6 months, already put down deposits on the venue and everything. Just last weekend, we were looking at those sample books for wedding invitations. Her mom had already bought some fancy mother of the bride dress. She looks at me all sad, like she's the victim, and says, "Honestly, I just don't feel the same attraction anymore. I thought I could get past it, but I can't. You're starting to thin on top, and I'm just not into that. I know it sounds shallow, but I can't help what I'm attracted to. And you're getting that same receding hairline your dad has." No joke. That's what she said. Not "you cheated" or "we want different things." Nope, my hairline. I stood there shocked, touching my hairline without even realizing it. She kept going ranting about how I was dependable but not exciting enough. How she needed someone she'd be thrilled to wake up next to, like I'm some kind of boring appliance or something. She actually said, and I'm quoting here, "I need someone with presence, with charisma, someone who walks into a room and people notice." As if personality is just how much attention you can grab when you enter a building. The worst part? I helped that woman with everything. Co-signed on her car when her credit was bad. Gave her dad $3,000 when their roof was leaking. Worked overtime for months to pay for the ring she wanted. The exact one she showed me in that magazine. With the princess cut diamond that cost me nearly 3 months' salary. And she's dumping me because I might go bald someday? Unbelievable. I asked her straight up if there was someone else. She looked me dead in the eyes and said no. Her parents backed her up too. I went over there the next day to try to make sense of it all, thinking maybe they could talk some sense into her. Nope. Her dad, who I fixed his boat motor for free last summer, when no shop would touch it without charging him a fortune, had the nerve to tell me I was a good guy, just not ambitious enough for his princess. Like, dude, I'm an industrial mechanic making solid money with my own place and zero debt. What more do you want? Zane, he said, all condescending. My daughter needs a man with vision, someone who's going places. As if fixing million-dollar industrial equipment that keeps factories running isn't important. As if having a stable career path isn't going places. See, that was always the thing with Mira and her family. They confused quiet consistency with lack of ambition. They thought because I wasn't constantly bragging about my brand or my next big move, that I wasn't going anywhere. Meanwhile, I had a 5-year plan to launch my own business. Had been researching equipment costs, saving up, learning the ropes. But that stuff doesn't make for exciting dinner conversation, I guess. Look at how I lived. Modest apartment, reliable but not flashy truck, simple wardrobe. I put 40% of every paycheck into savings and investments. Mira would complain that I didn't take her to fancy enough restaurants or buy her expensive enough gifts. Meanwhile, her credit cards were maxed out, and she had no idea what her retirement account even looked like. Honestly, her reasoning was all the confirmation I needed to walk away and never look back. I didn't fight it at all. I packed my stuff that weekend. Didn't even argue. Just said okay and left. In my head, though, total different story. I kept replaying every moment of our relationship, wondering if she'd ever actually cared about me, or if I was just a placeholder until someone more exciting came along. The worst part was that even though I knew her reasons were shallow, it still got to me. That night, I found myself staring in the bathroom mirror, checking my hairline, wondering if I really was that unattractive. That's the thing about betrayal. It's not the logic that stings, it's the fact that it came from someone who once claimed they loved you. But after a day or two of that mental spiral, I shifted gears, got back to the gym, doubled down on work, and started sorting through the pieces of what I wanted next. Not just in relationships, but in life. If anything, her cheap exit gave me clarity. It reminded me exactly why I kept grinding every day, saving every cent, planning for a future I was building with or without anyone's applause. About 2 weeks after getting dumped, I noticed my little brother Cade suddenly had new stuff. Like, a lot of new stuff. Let me explain Cade. He's 25, 4 years younger than me, and has never held a job longer than 8 months. But now he's rolling up to Sunday dinner at our parents' in new designer boots, fancy clothes, and driving a blacked-out Tahoe. Where's this dude getting money? Just made some good investments, he kept saying with this smug smile. My dad Neil, yeah, I call him Neil, long story, wouldn't stop talking about how Cade was finally finding his path and showing his potential. Meanwhile, I'm working 60 hours a week, living in a modest apartment, trying to save for my mobile repair business. Nothing flashy, just steady progress towards something real. I asked my mom what was up with Cade's sudden cash flow, and she just shrugged and said, "Don't be jealous. Your time will come." Jealous? Of what? My brother who's been playing video games and trying to be an influencer for the past 3 years? Sure. Every family dinner was the same. Cade dropping hints about some big business move, talking about leasing equipment and business development, showing off business cards that said executive director. My parents eating it all up, and me sitting there wondering what kind of scheme he'd fallen into. I mean, the dude once tried to sell energy drinks out of our garage. Not exactly Warren Buffett. One Sunday, I arrived early to help my mom prep dinner. I always did the heavy lifting and outdoor grilling. Cade was too busy with business calls to help. Through the window, I saw Cade pull up in his new Tahoe. He checked his hair in the rearview mirror for like 2 full minutes before getting out. Then he practiced his walk from the car to the front door, adjusting his posture, rehearsing this swagger that looked completely ridiculous. The whole time he was glancing around to see if anyone was watching. Inside, he was showing my parents some fancy brochure for a business retreat in Aspen. Only select executives get invited to this, he was saying. Neil was nodding along like Cade had just cured cancer or something. Mom kept touching his new watch, asking how much it cost. "You've always been the responsible one," she told me later when I was helping with the dishes. "Cade just needs this chance to prove himself." As if I'd been handed chances on silver platters my whole life. As if I hadn't worked summer jobs since I was 15, paid my own way through trade school, found all my own jobs without connections. Something felt off. Cade kept checking his phone and smiling at texts. Dad and him would have these quiet conversations that stopped when I walked in. Mom kept saying, "There's gonna be a big surprise soon," like we were on some game show. I tried calling a couple of my cousins to see if they knew what was going on with Cade's sudden success, but they were weirdly evasive. "Just talk to your brother, man," my cousin Trey said. "It's not my place." Another weird thing, Cade suddenly started asking me questions about my work. He'd never cared before. Actually used to make fun of me for being a grease monkey. But now he was asking about industrial equipment, maintenance contracts, things like that. I thought maybe he was finally maturing, taking an interest in real work for once. I even felt a little proud, started explaining some of the basics of industrial maintenance to him. Looking back, I should have seen what was coming, but I was keeping my head down, working long hours, stacking money, trying to move forward without getting dragged back into the noise. I figured staying busy and staying out of family drama was the smart play. But honestly, when I called off the wedding and walked away from Mira, my family barely blinked. No check-in, no "you all right?" Just silence, like it wasn't worth their emotional energy. Guess I should have known then where I ranked. Turns out keeping your distance doesn't always keep you safe. Around that same time, like a couple of months after the breakup, I started seeing someone new, Leah. Met her on a job site. She worked in operations and actually respected what I do. No fake compliments, no backhanded digs, just solid conversations and dry humor that hit exactly right. And most importantly, she didn't care about my hairline. Said bald guys looked confident, which considering the way I got dumped, felt like a cosmic middle finger in my favor. So when my mom called me on a random Tuesday saying, "Family dinner this Saturday, very important. Be there by 6." I figured maybe it was just another awkward get-together. I even asked what was up, and all she said was, "Just a special announcement. Wear something nice." I figured maybe Cade was finally going to explain his mysterious business success. Maybe he'd actually done something legitimate for once. I even got a haircut and bought a new button-up shirt, nicer than my usual work clothes. I show up at 5:58, still in my work boots, because I came straight from a job. Couldn't miss the chance at overtime, even on a Saturday. Everyone's there. My parents, my cousin Trey, my Aunt Roz, keep her name in your mind, and a few other relatives. They're all dressed up, drinking fancy sparkling cider. I walk in and immediately feel this weird vibe, like everyone knows something I don't. They're all giving me these looks. Kinda sad, kinda awkward. Dad pulls me aside and goes, "Just try to be happy for your brother, okay?" Before I can ask what he's talking about, he clinks his glass and says, "Everyone a toast to Cade and his lovely new bride." And then Mira walks in from the kitchen. My ex, on my brother's arm. My brain basically short-circuited. I'm standing there with my mouth open while everyone's clapping. Cade runs a hand through his perfectly styled hair. Yeah, the thick kind Mira apparently is into, and then pulls her in for a kiss right in front of me. She's wearing this tight dress, giggling and waving her hand around to show off a ring. A bigger ring than the one I'd bought her, I noticed. When did this happen? I finally managed to ask. My voice sounded weird, like it wasn't even mine. Cade shrugs all casual. We ran into each other a couple months after you guys split. Just clicked, you know? Sometimes the universe works in weird ways. Mira, this woman who told me I wasn't exciting enough, looks at me and says with a straight face, "He has that spark I was looking for. That presence. He's what I thought you'd be when we first met." I looked around the room. Everyone was smiling, raising their glasses. My mom, who had helped me pick out Mira's engagement ring. My dad, who I'd helped build a deck last summer while Cade was too busy to lend a hand. My cousins, who'd been at my engagement party less than a year ago. All of them knew about this and kept it from me. I swear, I almost flipped the entire dining room table. But my mom grabs my arm and whispers, "Don't make this about you, Zane. It's their special day." Their special day? I wanted to grab Cade by that smug head of hair and put him through the drywall. Instead, I just walked out. Didn't say anything. Got in my truck and drove around for like 3 hours, calling my best friend Marcus and just venting. How does your ex end up with your brother 4 months after dumping you? And your family thinks this is cool? That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about all those business meetings Cade had been having. All those texts he was smiling at. The way my parents had been acting weird. It all made sense now. The next morning, my phone blew up with messages. From my mom. "You embarrassed us. You ruined your brother's big day. You need to apologize to him." From my dad. "Man up, son. These things happen." From various cousins and relatives. "Awkward situation, but try to be happy for them." Not one person asked if I was okay, except Aunt Roz. Her text just said, "What a bunch of snakes. You okay, kid?" The next morning, I get this weird text from my Aunt Roz. "Come over. Need to talk." Roz isn't like my parents. She's my grandpa's sister, like 65 or something. With this crazy green hair, she dyes herself. Total badass, retired welder, takes no nonsense from anyone. So when she says come over, you go over. I get to her place, and she's got coffee and all these folders spread out on her kitchen table. Her house is small but immaculate. Photos of her welding crew on the walls, along with pictures of my grandpa. He died about a year earlier. Massive heart attack, gone before anyone could say goodbye. I'd been pretty wrecked about it. Grandpa Tom was the one who'd gotten me into mechanical work in the first place. "You look like hell," Roz said, sliding a mug of black coffee across the table. "Eat something." She pushed a plate of toast toward me. "Then we'll talk about why your brother suddenly has money." I wasn't hungry, but I ate anyway. "Roz isn't the kind of person you say no to." "You know why your brother suddenly has money?" she asks when I finish. I shake my head. "Your grandpa's business." See, what no one bothered to tell me was that my grandpa, who died last year, owned this industrial equipment leasing and service company. Like the whole thing. The company leases heavy machinery to construction firms and factories, plus provides maintenance and repairs. Super profitable, low-key business. I was shocked. Wait, Grandpa owned that place? I thought he just worked there. All this time, I assumed he was just one of the senior techs. Maybe lead mechanic at most. He wore the same stained coveralls every day, cracked jokes with the other guys, clocked in like everyone else. I'd helped him at the shop during summers and weekends as a teenager, learning about hydraulics and industrial systems, changing out hoses, rewiring controllers. I figured it was just his job, something he was proud of, but didn't talk much about. Roz nodded. That was his way. Always said, a man doesn't need credit to make an impact. He kept the paperwork locked up with me, had a clause in his will that the business would go to both you and Cade, but you wouldn't get full control until you were both 30, or if one of us got married. That makes no sense, I said. Why wouldn't he tell me about this? Roz sipped her coffee. He wanted you boys to make your own way first. Prove yourselves. He was going to tell you when you turned 30, or whenever you got married, whichever came first. She shook her head. He never imagined one of you would use marriage as a scheme. I'm 29. Cade's 25. But since he married Mira at the courthouse 3 weeks ago, it triggered the clause. And guess who was the trustee in charge of the business until then? My dad, Neil. Neil just handed everything over to Cade. Didn't tell me anything. Didn't ask for my input. Just signed it all away like I didn't exist. Your dad always favored Cade, Roz said, not mincing words. Thought you were too much like your grandpa. Practical, not flashy enough. Neil wanted a son who'd be the big shot he never became. Roz showed me the paperwork. Cade had already started rebranding everything as Cade Solutions, and was telling people he built it from scratch. He was using my share to finance his new lifestyle. And Mira? Her dad was posting on social media about how his daughter finally found a man with vision and drive. The company was worth nearly $2.8 million. Split 2 ways, that would have been $1.4 million each. Life-changing money, especially for someone like me who already knew the business. So my brother and my ex, they didn't just happen to find each other, I said slowly. They planned this. Roz nodded. Cade found out about the inheritance clause around 3 months ago. Your dad let it slip, probably on purpose. Next thing you know, Mira dumps you, starts seeing Cade in secret. They get married in a rush. And my parents knew about this the whole time. It wasn't a question. Your mom might be clueless, Roz said. But Neil? He orchestrated this. He always thought Cade had the business sense to run things. You were just the grease monkey in his eyes. I went home and got physically sick. The betrayal was so huge I couldn't process it. My brother, my ex, my dad, all conspiring behind my back to steal my inheritance. All those times I'd helped out at Grandpa's shop, learning the equipment, meeting the clients. That was my future they'd stolen. And for what? So Cade could play businessman? So Mira could have a rich husband? So my dad could live vicariously through his successful son? I almost called my dad to confront him, but Roz stopped me. Don't tip your hand, she said. We need to be smart about this. They think you're the dumb mechanic who won't fight back. Let's prove them wrong. The next few weeks were a blur. While Cade was busy buying expensive suits and taking Mira to fancy restaurants, I was meeting with lawyers, gathering evidence, and building a case. And Roz was helping me. She isn't just tough, she's smart and prepared. She pulls out these old recordings of my grandpa talking about the business. Zane's the one with the mechanical mind, he says in one. He's the one who should run it. Cade just needs to find himself first. The recordings were from the last year of Grandpa's life. He'd been documenting his thoughts on the business, his hopes for its future. In several of them, he explicitly stated that I should be the one running daily operations, with Cade in a silent partner role until he matures. Turns out all the time I'd been helping Grandpa at that equipment shop since I was 15, learning the business, meeting the clients. Grandpa had been grooming me to take over, without ever telling me that's what he was doing. While Cade was, well, being Cade. Your grandpa didn't want either of you boys to be spoiled, Roz explained. He came from nothing, built everything himself, wanted you to do the same. Meanwhile, Cade and Mira were making the rounds, playing the power couple. They showed up at my favorite bar, the one where all my friends hang out, dressed to the nines, Cade loudly ordering top-shelf everything, telling anyone who'd listen about his rapidly expanding business empire. He even had the nerve to offer my buddy Marcus a job. I always like to give opportunities to people from humble backgrounds, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Marcus, to his credit, just laughed in his face. I start telling people what happened. Not everyone, I'm not one for drama, but people who mattered. My girlfriend's dad is this impressive corporate lawyer who specializes in estates. He hears my story and goes, "Oh no, we're fixing this." Leah's dad, Richard, wasn't the kind of guy who yelled or made big promises. He was methodical, detail-oriented. This is a clear breach of fiduciary duty, he said, reviewing the documents. Your father had an obligation to manage this trust in both beneficiaries' best interests. Instead, he pretty clearly colluded with one beneficiary to cut out the other. So, we file this thing called a breach of fiduciary duty against Neil, basically saying he failed as trustee by giving everything to one person when the will clearly intended for both of us to benefit. We also included evidence that the marriage between Cade and Mira was arranged specifically to trigger the inheritance clause. Text messages Roz had somehow obtained. I didn't ask how. Receipts showing Cade had been buying Mira gifts before she even broke up with me. The audacity. That part hit harder than I expected. So they were already seeing each other while I was still engaged? While I was out there working overtime? Thinking I had a future with her? Suddenly, everything she said about my hairline, about not being exciting, looked like cover. Just noise to mask the fact that she'd already found her next upgrade. And her family? They knew. Her dad, the one who smiled in my face when I handed him $3,000 for their roof, backed her like she'd landed some Wall Street hotshot, not my brother with a new Tahoe and no resume. It wasn't about love or attraction. It was about money. That ring she wanted, the wedding plans, all of it. Guess it was just part of the climb. When we filed the lawsuit, my phone exploded. Neil called me 17 times in one day. My mom left tearful voicemails about tearing the family apart. Cade sent me a text that just said, "Seriously, dude?" Like I was the one who had done something wrong. Mira called too. I didn't answer any of them. The day of the first hearing, I walked into the courthouse in my one good suit, the one I'd bought for Mira's cousin's wedding, ironically. Roz was there in a severe black pantsuit, hair freshly dyed an even brighter green than usual. War paint, she said with a wink. Cade showed up in what looked like a brand new designer suit, Mira on his arm in some fancy dress, my dad looking nervous. They all tried to approach me before the hearing. I just walked past them like they were strangers. Roz testifies in court, looking the judge straight in the eye. Zane built that business with his grandpa, she says. He spent weekends and summers learning every part of it while Cade was busy trying to get famous online. This was never meant to be a wedding present for whoever got married first. When Neil tried to defend himself, Roz just cut him off. Neil, sit down. You raised someone who takes shortcuts, not a businessman. Of course, things didn't wrap up in just a few days. It took weeks of filings, hearings, and back and forth before we even got in front of a judge. During that time, my family went into full manipulation mode. Calls, texts, even in-person drop-ins. My mom showed up at my place one afternoon with a store-bought pie, like that was going to smooth things over. "This isn't about money," she said. "It's about you being insecure. Your jealous Cade found success first." Right, because nothing says success like stealing your brother's fiancé and inheritance in the same breath. Neil wasn't much better. Called me up saying he wanted Amen to man, like we were equals in this mess. Sat there trying to sound wise, lecturing me about letting go of bitterness and how real men don't cry over money or women. This from the same guy who signed my share of Grandpa's business over to Cade, without even a phone call. I let him finish, then said, "Real men don't sell out their own sons to play favorites." He got quiet for a second, then muttered, "Cade just needed it more. You have everything. You don't need it. Stop being greedy." There it was. Not even an apology. Just confirmation I was never the son he bet on. Cade got bold. Sent me this smug message saying, "You always hated when I won." Like we were kids playing backyard football, not grown adults dealing with $1 million betrayal. They kept trying to paint me as the bitter, balding ex who couldn't handle being left behind. But I stayed focused. Let them talk. I had receipts. And Mira's dad, who once hyped her up like she'd found some golden ticket with Cade, started getting uncomfortable. When our legal team laid out the texts, receipts, and timelines, the look on his face said it all. He hadn't known the full story. He thought his daughter married into some bold business move. Turned out, she hitched herself to a rigged game. And now there were receipts. Watching him slowly realize Mira and Cade schemed the entire thing behind my back? Priceless. Man looked like he'd swallowed a brick. By the time we finally had the full hearing, the court had everything laid out. Evidence of Cade's shady loan applications, documents showing misuse of company funds, even testimony from former employees he'd fired just to make the books look cleaner. The moment they saw Cade had been misrepresenting the business's financials while playing entrepreneur, the judge didn't hesitate. The accounts were frozen immediately. Within a month, the ruling came down. I was entitled to my full half of the business, plus damages for the mismanagement and breach of trust. It was a substantial payout, enough to make a clean break and do things right. I used it to buy an empty commercial space 2 blocks from the original location. Better layout, bigger lot, and most importantly, my name on the door. Within a couple of months, most of Grandpa's old clients had switched to me. They remembered me from when I was a teenager, trusted me more than the flashy guy in designer clothes who didn't know a torque wrench from a screwdriver. The head of maintenance at Miller Manufacturing, one of our biggest clients, came by the new shop my first week open. "Your grandpa always said you were the one with the touch," he told me. Said you could hear what was wrong with the machine just by listening to it. We want to work with you, not your brothers. Whatever that is. That was a good description of what Cade had turned Grandpa's business into. He'd hired a bunch of salespeople, redone the office with expensive furniture, created a slick website full of stock photos and buzzwords. But he'd let go most of the actual mechanics and technicians, claiming they were outdated and not aligned with the new vision. Those were the guys I hired first. Men and women who knew their stuff, who Grandpa had trusted. People with grease under their nails and knowledge in their heads. One by one, the contracts started coming my way. And before I knew it, Cade's whole house of cards fell apart pretty quick. The investigation into his loan applications got real serious. His credit score tanked harder than a rock in water. Mira's dad suddenly didn't know the full story when people asked him about his son-in-law's business. The most satisfying part was watching Cade's fancy new lifestyle crumble. The leased Tahoe disappeared, replaced by an old Honda Civic. The designer clothes gave way to basics from the mall. The big talk about executive retreats and business empires dried up completely. I saw them at the grocery store once, about 2 months after the court ruling. Mira was arguing with him about buying name-brand cereal versus store-brand. We can't afford both cereals and that fancy shampoo you want, he was saying. They didn't see me. I just pushed my cart past, smiling to myself. I kept things simple and honest in the business, exactly how Grandpa would have wanted it. No flashy marketing, just quality work and fair prices. I bought my first investment property 6 months later, a small apartment building my friend's dad was selling. Started putting away serious money for the future. Roz came by the shop one morning with donuts and coffee. Watched me work for a bit, then goes, "You still going bald?" I laughed and ran my hand through my hair. "Not yet." "Good," she said with this mischievous grin. "You're more attractive when you're outdoing people who underestimated you." Roz had become a regular fixture at the shop. Turns out she knew a lot about the business side of things. She'd been advising Grandpa for years. Between her business sense and my technical knowledge, we made a pretty good team. My parents tried to reconcile about 6 months after the court case. Neil showed up at the shop one day, looking awkward in his casual clothes among all the machinery. "Your mother misses you," he said. "We'd like you to come to Sunday dinner." "Is Cade going to be there?" I asked. "He's your brother," Neil said, like that explained everything. "That's not what I asked." Neil sighed. "Yes, he'll be there. And Mira. They're still family." "Then I won't be there," I said simply, turning back to the engine I was working on. "You can't hold a grudge forever," Neil said. "What they did was wrong, but—" "It's not a grudge," I interrupted. "It's a choice. I choose not to have people in my life who conspired to steal from me, even if they're blood." He left without another word. I haven't been to a family dinner since. The best part came about 3 months after everything went down. I'm checking my phone after work and see a message from Mira. "Hey, been thinking about you lately. Do you ever think about us? Miss talking to you?" I showed Leah, and we both just shook our heads. 2 days later, another message. I was so immature back then. I didn't appreciate what we had. Made some really bad decisions I regret now. "She's not sorry," Leah said, reading Mira's message. "She's just sorry it didn't work out the way she planned." Roz saw it before I could respond and said, "She's desperate. Send her a pic of you holding the business license with your full head of hair." But I didn't need to go that route. I just sent one line. "The man you left built a life you don't qualify for anymore." Then blocked her number, her social media, everything. No drama, no insults, just truth. Heard through mutual friends that she and Cade split up a few weeks later. He moved back in with our parents. I thought that was the end of it, that he might finally leave me the heel alone. But nah. About a couple of weeks after I blocked Mira, I was working late at the shop. Everyone had gone home hours ago, but I needed to finish a custom hydraulic system for Miller Manufacturing that was due the next morning. I was alone with just the overhead lights, some classic rock playing from my portable speaker, and the satisfying rhythm of solid work. I heard the door open, but didn't look up right away, figuring it was the night security guard making his rounds. Then I caught a whiff of expensive cologne. Way too much of it. "So this is what winning looks like to you?" Cade's voice echoed through the shop. "Working alone on a Friday night? Covered in grease?" I set down my wrench slowly and turned around. Cade stood there in what used to be his designer clothes, now looking a little worn at the edges. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was swaying slightly. Definitely had been drinking. "Shop's closed," I said evenly. "You need to leave." He laughed, that same smug laugh he'd had since we were kids. "Or what? You'll call the cops on your own brother? Add that to the list of ways you fucked up this family?" I wiped my hands on a shop rag. "I didn't do anything. You stole from me, remember? You and Mira and Dad all worked together to cut me out. It should have been mine anyway, he shouted, his voice bouncing off the metal equipment. I was the one with the vision, the one who could actually make something of Grandpa's boring little operation. You just wanted to keep fixing machines like some blue-collar nobody. I couldn't help but smile at that. And yet here I am, with all the clients. And there you are, living in Mom and Dad's basement again. That hit a nerve. He took a step toward me, pointing his finger. You think you're so much better than me? Always have. Mr. Responsible. Mr. Perfect. But you know what? At least I go after what I want. I saw an opportunity, and I took it. You stole from your own brother, I said calmly. You slept with my fiancée while I was still with her. There's nothing admirable about that. She wasn't happy with you anyway, he spat. Always working, never exciting, starting to go bald. I cut him off with a laugh. Yeah, about that. How's your hairline doing these days, bro? Starting to thin at the temples, just like mine, just like Dad's? Genetics are a bitch, aren't they? He instinctively touched his hair, and I saw the look of panic cross his face. I mean, Mira had dumped me over something that would eventually happen to him too, lol. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. You know what? Cade said, his voice dropping to something more dangerous. I came here to warn you. This isn't over. You think you've won, but I'm going to destroy everything you've built. I've still got friends in high places. I can make sure clients don't trust you. I can make sure your permits get denied. I can make your life hell. I set down the rag and took a step toward him. For the first time since we were teenagers, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. Listen carefully, Cade, because I'm only going to say this once. You already tried your worst. And look where we both ended up. I'm doing better than ever. You're drunk on a Friday night, threatening the only person who might have given you a second chance if you just owned up to what you did. I gestured around the shop. You see all this? I built this myself. No shortcuts, no schemes, just hard work and honesty. Two things you've never understood. So go ahead. Try to mess with me again. See how that works out for you. The truth settled over him like a physical weight. I could see his shoulders slump as he realized he had no leverage left. No more cards to play. You were always his favorite, Cade said quietly. And I knew he meant Grandpa. Always the one he believed in. Maybe because I actually showed up, I replied. Maybe because I cared about the work, not just what I could get from it. He stood there for a long moment, swaying slightly, looking around the shop that could have been partly his if he'd just played it straight. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. I heard later from Roz that Cade had moved to another state, trying to start fresh. Part of me hoped he would. Part of me didn't care either way. What mattered was that I'd faced him down without losing my temper, without stooping to his level. I'd stood my ground and protected what was mine. When Leah asked me the next day if I ever missed having a relationship with my brother, I thought about it honestly before answering. I miss the brother I thought I had, I told her, not the one he turned out to be. And that was the hardest truth of all. Sometimes the people who are supposed to have your back are the ones holding the knife. But that doesn't mean you can't build something better without them.